The operations tent was thick with heat and tension. Marines crowded around the mission brief. Eyes on the map spread across the table. Somewhere in the mountains, a high-value target was moving, and someone had to take the shot. Gunnery Sergeant Ramirez scanned the room, looking for his best shooters. His eyes passed over Corporal Maya Cross without stopping. She stood quietly in the back, small frame nearly hidden behind the taller men. "Sir," someone said, voice dripping with sarcasm, "why don't we send Cross? She's got that delicate touch." The room erupted in laughter. Maya's expression didn't change. She'd heard worse. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the woman they dismissed had a call sign whispered in classified circles. A name that made enemy snipers abandon their posts. A name that meant death from distances they couldn't comprehend. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Military and Veteran Stories so you never miss these true tales of courage. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Corporal Maya Cross was 27 years old. When she arrived at Camp Lejeun's Advanced Sniper Training Facility, on paper, she was a logistics coordinator transferring into marksmanship instruction. Her file listed basic qualifications, standard deployments. Nothing remarkable. What the file didn't mention was classified. She stood 5'3", in a formation of Marines averaging 6 feet. She looked like someone who'd wandered into the wrong profession. Her voice was quiet, her demeanor calm to the point of appearing timid. She didn't bark orders or throw her weight around. To the instructors already at Camp Lejeune, she was a diversity checkbox, someone the brass wanted to prove women could do the job, even if reality said otherwise. Staff Sergeant Derek Morrison made his opinion clear the first time they met. He was a 12-year veteran with 2 deployment ribbons and a reputation for breaking recruits who couldn't handle the pressure. "So you're the new instructor," he said, looking her up and down like she was a piece of equipment that didn't meet spec. "How many confirmed kills you got, Cross?" Maya didn't answer. She just met his eyes with that same unreadable calm. Morrison smirked. "That's what I thought. Good luck earning respect from shooters who've actually been downrange." The other instructors watched the exchange with barely hidden amusement. This was going to be entertaining. The new girl wouldn't last a month. But Maya didn't react. She didn't defend herself. She didn't need to, because she knew something they didn't. In Fallujah, 3 years earlier, there had been a siege. A Marine reconnaissance unit pinned down in a compound, surrounded by enemy fighters closing in from 3 directions. Air support was 20 minutes out. Too long. The Marines were going to be overrun. From a rooftop 1,200 meters away, a single shot cracked through this afternoon heat. The enemy commander dropped. Then another shot. The second in command fell. Then a third, a fourth, a fifth. In under 90 seconds, the enemy assault collapsed into chaos. The fighters scattered. The Marines held their position until reinforcements arrived. 23 men walked out of that compound alive. The shooter, who saved them, was never identified in official reports. The operation was classified. The distance was considered impossible by conventional standards. And the Marines who lived through it only knew one thing. Somewhere in the desert, a ghost had been watching over them. Maya Cross had been that ghost. But here, in this training facility, surrounded by men who judged her by her size and her silence, none of that mattered. They saw what they wanted to see, a small woman who didn't belong. And Maya let them believe it. The first training class was a disaster. Not because Maya failed, because the students refused to listen. She stood at the front of the classroom, explaining windage calculations and ballistic trajectories. The recruits sat with arms crossed, exchanging glances, barely concealing their disrespect. One of them, a corporal named Jenkins, raised his hand halfway through. "Ma'am, no disrespect, but have you actually taken a shot under fire?" The room went quiet. Every eye turned to Maya. She paused, measuring her words carefully. "Yes." "How many?" Jenkins pressed. Maya's expression didn't change. "Enough." Laughter rippled through the room. It wasn't the answer they wanted. They wanted war stories. They wanted proof. They wanted her to earn her place in front of them. But Maya wasn't there to perform. She was there to teach. The problem was, they weren't interested in learning from someone they didn't respect. After class, Morrison caught up with her outside. "You need to control that room, Cross. They're walking all over you." "They'll come around," Maya said quietly. Morrison shook his head. "No, they won't. Not unless you show them something real." Maya looked at him for a long moment. "And if I do, then maybe you'll last longer than a month." That night, Maya requested range time, alone. She didn't need an audience. She needed to remember why she was here. The rifle range stretched out into darkness, illuminated only by the pale glow of range lights. Maya set up at the 500-meter line, settled into position, and began to shoot. One shot sent her mask to just breathe. Another shot, same result. Again. She didn't miss. Not once. What no one saw, what no one could see in the dark, was that Maya wasn't shooting at 500 meters. The targets she hit were at 800, and she was doing it with iron sights, no scope, just instinct and muscle memory burned into her after years of doing what most people said was impossible. When she finally packed up and walked back toward the barracks, a figure emerged from the shadows. Gunnery Sergeant Ramirez, the senior instructor, had been watching. "How long have you been out here, Cross?" he asked. "A couple hours, sir." Ramirez nodded slowly. "I pulled your file. The real one. Took some calls to some people who don't usually answer phones." Maya said nothing. "Your phantom." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Maya's jaw tightened, but she didn't deny it. Ramirez exhaled. "I served with one of the guys you saved in Fallujah. He told me about the shot. Said it was impossible. Said whoever took it was either the luckiest bastard alive or the best shooter he'd ever seen." Maya's voice was quiet. "I don't talk about Fallujah, sir. I know, and I'm not asking you to." Ramirez stepped closer. "But these recruits need to see what you can do. They need to know you're not just another instructor. They need to know you're the real deal." Maya looked at him. "And if I prove it, what happens? Then they'll follow you anywhere." The next morning, Maya called an unscheduled range exercise. Every recruit, every instructor, mandatory attendance. Morrison showed up with his arms crossed, skeptical. "What's this about, Cross?" "A demonstration," Maya said simply. The recruits gathered at the 300-meter line, the standard qualification distance. Maya walked past them, kept walking, and didn't stop until she reached the 1,000-meter marker. Silence fell over the range. "Is she serious?" Jenkins muttered. Morrison's expression shifted from skepticism to something else, concern. Because if she failed, she'd lose every shred of credibility she had left. And if she succeeded, Maya settled into position. No spotter, no scope. Just her rifle, her instincts, and the wind. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathed, felt the air, the way it moved, the way it would carry the bullet. Then she opened her eyes, acquired the target, and fired. The shot echoed across the range. For a moment, nothing. Then the distant steel target rang out, clear and unmistakable, dead center. No one spoke. Maya cycled the bolt, adjusted slightly, and fired again. Another hit, again and again. 5 shots, 5 hits, at 1,000 meters, with iron sights. The silence was deafening. Finally, Jenkins whispered, "Who the hell is she?" Ramirez stepped forward, his voice carrying across the stunned crowd. "Her call sign is Phantom. 3 years ago, she took a shot in Fallujah that saved 23 Marines. The enemy never saw her, never heard her. They just started dropping, one by one, until they ran." He turned to face the recruits. "You want to know if she's earned the right to teach you? She's forgotten more about shooting than most of you will ever learn." Morrison stared at Maya, all trace of condescension gone. "How?" he asked quietly. Maya lowered her rifle. Her voice was steady, calm, the same voice she'd used every day since arriving. "Because I don't shoot to prove anything. I shoot to bring people home." Everything changed after that day. The recruits stopped whispering. They started listening. When Maya spoke, they leaned in. When she corrected their form, they adjusted without argument. Jenkins approached her after class one day, hesitant. "Ma'am, I owe you an apology." Maya shook her head. "You don't owe me anything. Just learn. That's why I'm here." Morrison became one of her biggest advocates. "I was wrong about you, Cross," he admitted. "Dead wrong." "You weren't wrong," Maya replied. "You just didn't have all the information." But the transformation wasn't just about respect. It was about what Maya taught them. She didn't teach them to be killers. She taught them to be protectors. She taught them that every shot mattered, that every bullet carried the weight of someone's life, enemy or ally. Shooting isn't about how far you can hit, she told them. It's about knowing when to pull the trigger and when to hold. It's about bringing your brothers home. Her classes became the most sought after in the program. Recruits who graduated under her. Instruction carried themselves differently. They were precise, disciplined, and above all, they were humble, because Maya taught them that the deadliest shooters weren't the loudest, they were the quietest, the ones who disappeared, the ones no one saw coming, the ones they called Phantom. 6 months into her tenure as an instructor, Maya received a call, a secure line, a voice she recognized from Fallujah. "Phantom, we need you." She listened in silence as the voice explained. Another unit pinned down, another impossible situation, another shot that no one else could take. Maya looked around her classroom, at the recruits she'd trained, at the men and women who now understood what it meant to be a protector. "I'm an instructor now," she said quietly. "I know, but you're also the best we have. And right now, 20 lives are depending on someone who can do what you do." Maya closed her eyes. She'd left that life behind. She'd chosen to teach instead of fight. But some calls couldn't be ignored. When, she asked, "Wheels up in 4 hours," she hung up, packed her gear, and walked out of Camp Lejeune without a word to anyone. The operation was classified. The location, the target, the outcome, none of it would ever appear in official records. But 2 weeks later, Maya returned, quieter than before, her eyes carrying the weight of something new. Morrison saw her first. "Where were you?" Maya didn't answer directly. She just said, "Somebody needed to come home." He didn't press. He understood. But that night, word spread through unofficial channels. Somewhere overseas, a Marine unit had been extracted under impossible circumstances, enemy sharpshooters eliminated, from distances no one could explain, and the shooters who fell whispered one name before they died: Phantom. Years later, recruits still talk about her, the small woman who walked into Camp Lejeune and changed everything, the instructor who proved that size, gender, and volume didn't determine worth. They tell the story of the day she hit 5 targets at 1,000 meters. They talk about the lesson she taught, and they remember the Callsign that once struck fear into the hearts of enemies halfway around the world. Corporal Maya Cross never sought recognition. She never demanded respect. She simply showed up, did the work, and let her actions speak. And in the end, that was louder than any words could ever be. Moral: true strength doesn't announce itself. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one no one notices until it's too late. If this story moved you, don't forget to show your support. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more military and veteran stories. We bring you true tales of courage, sacrifice, and honor. Stories that remind us of the quiet strength carried by those who serve. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never forget the heroes among us.